Hello and welcome to another tutorial. In this video I would like to show you how you can cut the back for a back vent and how you will sew, how you will stitch it. As you know, you can have a jacket or a coat that has the lining completely closed in, but you can also have a coat or a jacket where the lining is loose on the bottom. Well, this particular video today I will show you how you will cut this and how you will close it totally on the bottom. So here we go.
So let's take the case you like to make yourself a coat or a jacket, and you do have a pattern, but you've just noticed this pattern does not have the construction for doing a slot in the back, but you would like to have one. Well, that is no problem whatsoever, because you can use exactly that pattern and by putting this vent in the back. So what you do, your material is folded in half. It doesn't matter if you have a cut on the edge there or if it's folded over. And as an example, you measure now towards your pattern that you have 5 centimeters from the edge you have lying there. And this 5 centimeters you have to measure all the way along. And just put your pattern now in this position with these 5 centimeters. Your pattern might have been prepared for having the material laid over. So that is important. That means you have no seam added onto the pattern. But now, it doesn't matter if this is now laid over, like in my case, or if it's a cut open edge. Just measure again 5 centimeters from your edge. Pin your pattern on the material, and we will just cut this out now the way we need it to do this vent. On my pattern, I do have on the edges already the 1 centimeter allowed. That's why I'm cutting exactly along my pattern, because this is exactly correct. Going along the shoulder, everywhere I got my 1 centimeter on my pattern already allowed. Now you cut all the way across. And then I first put a little cut there where my pattern is, because that is my sign, my mark, because my seam has to go down there later, because that is the official middle of the back. Now I cut the bottom all the way straight through. I allowed myself on this pattern a 4 centimeter seam for later on. And now I have to work out how long do I want my vent to be. Now I'm just cutting my 4 centimeter there on the edge, so I know that's my seam for the bottom later. And I've just decided I want my vent to be 20 centimeters high. That means first of all I'm just cutting the edge open, which is necessary. And then I just do a sideways cut towards the back, but staying away 1 centimeter from the edge of my pattern. And now I cut down the back middle, leaving 1 centimeter. That's my 24 centimeters, because 4 for the bottom seam and 20 for the vent. And now I leave 1 centimeter standing on for my seam, because of taking all the pins out, remove the pattern and get your lining. Here we do exactly the same thing. Actually, if you do have for your complete pattern an extra lining piece, use that exactly as it is, because this will be probably correct, besides checking the lengths maybe. I explain that here in a moment. But let's take the case you do not have a lining, a pattern extra, then use exactly the same one that you've just done the main material with. Cut the shoulder, the neck part and the sleeve practically the same, but on the side you have to add from the top on, starting with about 1 centimeter, going down to 1.5 centimeter width, which you add on the side seam. The bottom you will shorten 1 centimeter, you will make it shorter 1 centimeter than the main material was. This you would not have to do if you would leave the coat open on the bottom on the hem, because you could at any time turn over the seam, the hem from the lining more, so it will not show. But as we're closing this particular back completely with the lining has to be at least 1 centimeter shorter than the main material. Otherwise, it will always show out when you walk along somewhere, or sometimes you see somebody walking on the road and you can see their lining is too long and it's showing. Now there we're going to do our seam, but that is the next job. You see that right now on the sewing machine. Here we go. You got your proper sides laid together, your little mark up there where your seam's supposed to start on 1 centimeter, and that's exactly what we're doing now. We're just stitching down that middle back from your coat, from your main material. And when we get to the vent down here, you see I already ironed some interfacing on to make this vent really be well at the when we're finished with it. Now when you get to this part, you just turn around. You went down farther 1 centimeter, so you have this 1 centimeter to do there as well, and you go across. There you leave 1 centimeter open. This is very, very important, because that is what we need to stitch the lining on. So you can go to the ironing board if you wish. That's how you would iron your vent down now flat, or you can decide just to stitch down there right away. Therefore, you have to put from the vent inside the edges neatly onto each other. And have a look exactly how you would iron it, or you go right away and iron it. It's up to you. And you look for your last stitch that you got inside there. Your last stitch when you came down doing the back, and then going across. Sometimes you can feel it if you have a thick material. Otherwise, if you don't feel it, then maybe put a pin in where your last stitch is. Mark it there. Okay, I can see this one now. And take a little pattern. Some to be sure you're going to make a straight line there. And just stitch across next to your pattern and stitch upways all the way, because this is a vent actually like for a ladies' coat. The gents' coats are the opposite way around. Then all you have to do is put your lining, your interfacing that you iron on, onto the other side than you see here. But there again, hardly nobody knows that. If you do it the wrong way, nobody will see that. So now I have to go to the ironing board. That's necessary. I go over the seam, first of all, that I've just stitched over, and as well go all the way down there and checking that your width is correct to the bottom as your seam's coming down from the top. Now you turn it over, and we're gonna iron the bottom. On here you can see exactly from my overstitching that I ended up with the overstitching the same as my first stitch was. I told you I want my seam on the bottom to be 4 centimeters. So that's what I'm ironing over now. I measure again, and I go all the way across the 4 centimeters. And there I finished, because my first ironed in groove is there already, my turnover. And ironing this down, I keep this a little bit up from the bottom because otherwise that will also show. Stay a little bit away from the first edge that you ironed, so this will not show out there. Then you lie this inner part on top, and also here start ironing by staying a millimeter away from your bottom edge and iron over to this little cut you made yourself on the 4 centimeter width that your hem is supposed to be later. See, when you stay away like that, it will never hang through on the back bottom. It will be a perfect slat. It's supposed to be, if you look at some that you can buy in the shops, you will find it is always a little bit shorter, the inner part. Now, I believe you've finished your coat so far by now that you got the sleeves in the lining and in the main material in, you've done the cufflinks, you've done the color, everything is finished besides your vent and the bottom to do. So therefore, as I'm not making a coat for you here, I only want to show you how to do this slot. That's why I'm just stitching this lining onto my main material now, only to show you how I will finish this off later. Otherwise I would not do this like this. Don't get this wrong. This is not the way to do the coat, as you couldn't finish anything off properly. I only cut this to show you. So now comes the part to cut in the lining to do your slat. You check it underneath first, putting these edges firm on top of each other, and have a look how wide your material is. Your lining will be standing over a little bit on each side, and to help yourself, put a pin in there to hold the pieces together for you, which helps a little bit. Now look at your whole lining. Look how much width you got everywhere, and look at the last stitch from your vent. That is very, very important, because now we have to put some widths in the top above the vent opening that is there in that position. So look exactly for that last stitch there, hold it there, and now above that last stitch create a little pleat, approximately 1.5 centimeters. That means the way I'm holding it, I got maybe 7-8 millimeters on each side, which means it gives me the width of 1.5 centimeter. And put yourself a pin into there, because that's exactly where we got to cut to now. I know this takes a little bit of courage if you've never done it before, because cutting a long piece into the lining just in like that is not so easy. I know that. Okay, check again that on both sides you got the same material standing over to the side seams, and maybe put yourself a little point there exactly where your last stitch is in the inside. As I said, check again left and right that the same amount is standing over. And now, not cutting where you see the edge of the underneath material, because you need to think about this centimeter that you're inwards there. That means a centimeter down from your edge. There you got to go down, and that's approximately where you got to do your cut. You can of course mark it completely for yourself first, but I've done hundreds of those, so I should know that I might be correct here. So you go towards your point that you marked there, and pull the needle out, and now we're making a slight little seam exactly into this lining on the top there. Put it inwards like that. Hold it briefly and turn it over. And we do a little seam here. I've got a special video on that if you want my explanation on that. There's my cut in. That's why I marked it, so you can see this. Now I do a 1 centimeter seam exactly from where my cut is finished there. You must put the material in a right angle, and to make it easy for yourself, take a template, as I've shown in my template video, and lie it sideways like that, so you get smaller and smaller and smaller doing this little seam. And rather stay towards the inside when you sew it, not towards the outside. That would make a terrible funny look of that seam later on. And stitch a couple of stitches farther on, because then they're already tied together nicely. That's the best way to do it, and that's perfect. You will see that later. Now, as my first stitch is exactly where my cut finished, I have to cut this open a little bit longer, because otherwise later on it will be too tight for me to do the next stitching there. So here you see already this little seam, and in a certain way it looks already as if you're done your vent completely. Now just start with the right side, as we see this here, by having to do now the seam on that side first. This is the underneath one. You can also do the other side first. It really doesn't matter, but I'll show you this way now. So I'm going inside now with my hand to do this seam. Taking both materials there together. John didn't have the camera too well on my hand there, a little bit too low. I have to be a little bit, do some complaining to him for the next video. Sorry that you can't see this so well here, but you see it in a moment. As I've done this in my German language first, as you might have noticed, I do mainly my all my tutorials in my own language first, and then I try my best to tell you how to do it. It's not always easy, because there are all special words for sewing, and I don't seem to find them always. So you put your last 2 stitches, the stitches from this little seam you did on the lining, on top of the last stitch from your vent opening there. And for the beginning now, we only stitch this down about 10 centimeters, just so we do the opening cut first of all for you to see before we get onto the hem to do. Doesn't matter where you finish, anywhere around there. This will come later. You will see that. Here you can see this is the start of your inner part, the underneath part of your vent. Now you can see already how you got to do it. It's real simple. You just flap this back, and now you can also see, if I would have not cut an extra bit into there in the lining, this would be all pulling and would be too tight. Again, there from this last stitch, stitch on stitch, you start exactly in that corner, stitching down that seam 1 centimeter. That is the overlap from the vent. That's why you can see the interfacing on there. And also there, you don't go all the way down. Leave yourself some space at the moment. Only look at your vent at the moment, how it's coming on. You can do this bit by bit. There you see already. It looks beautiful. That's how I like it. Yep. Okay. And now we got to look at this at the bottom. Now, first of all, we stitch the lining as if you would be doing the seam 1 centimeter onto this part. Now if your coat would be already completely finished, you would start there and sew all the way to the other side already. But as I explained to you, I'm only got a little piece here to explain the vent to you. I'm only closing this a little bit as well. As I mentioned before, your lining should always have some width in it. If you cannot hold this material in, if your lining has too much, then just put some little pleaches in some positions where you would like to have them. This was just an extra hint for you. So here you can see how this is going to fold over now and being stitched in. And the lining should not show out when we're finished with this. That's why we cut it earlier on 1 centimeter shorter. So you turn it outside in again. And now we finish this little seam that we started earlier on from the top. Look where you got your hem ironed over. Make yourself a little mark if you want to, like I just did. And now I show you again before we stitch all the way down. Here is the lining. It pulls because it's shorter. This is correct. There is your ironed edge. Fold this down and now push the lining into there. Lay it all right angled on top of each other and stitch down. If necessary, cut the edge just a little bit, so it's better for the turning it around and really doing the corner nicely. And now we just stitch along this edge. That's the inner part of the vent. 1 millimeter. You can of course only iron it if you wish, but what you got to be careful of, make sure the lining will not show on this side. Rather have it going a little bit towards the back, towards the inside. That's always better. Rather the main material show on that edge in the inside than the opposite way around. So now we got to do this other side. As you can see, this is really nice. The lining will not hang through on the bottom. This could also be a little bit higher. That all is up to you. Then you would have had to cut the lining shorter again. Now, just put this and have a look here. That you fold this now over exactly that it will match the cut edge, the lining and the main material. Then make a little mark there. Go back on your seam that you want to finish there. Now I start on the bottom. There where my little cut is, I fold it over. And you see that is exactly the same space again as we have on the other side, that towards the seam. Finish that seam there, and now fold this one over where you ironed it again, your bottom hem. That's correct. And now turn this corner around. Nice and tidy, as we always like to work, clean and tidy. And here we can see already how this will be when we're totally finished with it. Straighten it all out. Always check your jobs. And here you can see the lining is also higher again than the main material, and that's how we want. Now, to finish off this side of the lining here, you got to really hold this very well that you don't push it in a wrong direction. Maybe pin it first, or maybe just do a couple of stitches first, and without going back and forth and checking it in case if you have to open it again, because it's very easy to get a little funny widths in somewhere when you start doing this. Go as far in as you can get in with your sewing machine, but there will always be a little hole there anyway, and if you look at finished coats that you can buy, you will find there is this hole in that corner. But that is okay. That doesn't bother nobody and is not wrong by any mean anyway. So checking again, there is your seam finished. There is that hole that I just mentioned, but as I said, that is absolutely correct. And now we should maybe go and iron this part to see if we've done a good job on this. So I go to my steam iron and I just finish it off. It's always nice if you iron the lining over exactly the way you want it to fall when you're wearing it. Check again on the opposite side, the proper side. And you're finished with your vent. Now you can see the width of the lining is still standing over. This is correct because the width is needed, and this vent is exactly perfectly falling straight down as I wanted it. And no matter how you turn it, it will be a perfect vent for your next coat or jacket. I hope I could give you some good ideas with doing this particular tutorial. I thank you for watching, and I wish you much fun with some good sewing and working you do. Thank you and goodbye. See you again.